get started.
Okay, thank you. نستغفر الله العظيم الكريم الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ونتوب إليه سبحانه. نعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبه نستعين. آمين. Assalamu alaikum everyone. I am very happy to finally meet you in person, if we can call this meeting in person. In this week's Saturday discussion, we are following from the sixth bird, which we began reading last week. And last week, we covered the parable that was conveyed to us to understand the verse, Verily, God has purchased from the believers their persons and their property, that paradise might be theirs. So in order to understand this verse better, we were introduced to a parable, a symbolic story. And last week, we touched upon some key components of this parable, like what does trade mean to us, and how do we interpret it in this context? What does selling our property to God mean? And how come we can sell something that doesn't actually belong to us? While talking about this, last week, something in the parable was very interesting to me, and it was this sentence: the king, in his infinite mercy, sent a most noble lieutenant to the two men, and by means of a compassionate decree, conveyed the following to them. So what I found really interesting in this part was the king chose to reach out to the subjects and offer them a very profitable, very helpful solution for their situation, in which they were in a situation in which there was war going on and nothing stayed stable. And the king, in his infinite mercy, sends a lieutenant to the two men, and by means of a compassionate decree, conveyed the following to them. And in the decree, the king offered the man to sell the property to him. And in last week's discussion, we talked about it, and even though we are going to move on in the text to find out in detail about what it means and how can we sell the property to our Creator, which is in fact His property. But last week we talked about using all the qualities and everything that is given to us or entrusted to us in our Creator's name and within His permission. And other than that, after going through this parable in which one of the two men chose to sell his property to the king gladly, and the other chose not to recognize the king and not to sell the property, we came to the part where we will read about what the symbols in this parable stand for. And please, throughout this discussion, don't hesitate to raise your hand or put something in the comment box. And your interventions would be much welcome. So if there are no questions or any concerns so far, should we go on to read this part also? I guess I'm going to start reading. O soul full of caprices, look at the face of truth through the telescope of this parable. As for the king, he is the monarch of pre-eternity and post-eternity, your sustainer and creator. The estates, machinery, tools and scales are your possessions while in life's fold, your body, spirit and heart within those possessions, and your outward and inward senses, such as the eye and the tongue, intelligence and imagination. As for the most noble lieutenant, it is the noble messenger of God, and the most wise decree is the Wise Qur'an, which describes the trait we are discussing in this verse. Verily, God has purchased from the believers their persons and property, that paradise might be theirs. So, looking at what the symbols in the parable stands for, we can unveil the meanings that are introduced to us here that look to our own lives. The sentence, also full of caprices, talks to our side, one of our qualities. That reminds me of this second man who chose not to recognize the king and not to sell the property. When I look at the behavior and choice of the second man, I realize that he does not realize the reality of his situation. He does not perhaps realize his own weakness and own impotence and the seriousness of the premise he finds himself in. And from this behavior, he chooses not to sell the property in hopes of using it according to his own wishes. So that is what I understand from caprices. And the fact that the author is addressing to the soul full of caprices here, it reminds me that that side of me needs this reminder to wake up from any dream-like states of mind that prevents me from realizing my true disposition in the universe that I find myself in. Is there anyone who wants to add anything about the soul full of caprices? If not, I will go on. Look at the face of truth through the telescope of this parable. As for the king, he is the monarch of pre-eternity and post-eternity, your sustainer and creator. So the king in the parable, which had infinite mercy, who chose to reach out to his subjects and offer them a very profitable and helpful offer, and who showed them a way to save themselves from the dangerous situation that they are in, is in reality our creator. Our creator, out of his infinite mercy, reached out to us and shows us ways to be protected from the dangers of the tumultuous situation that we find ourselves in. The estates, machinery, tools and scales are your possessions while in life's fold, your body, spirit and heart within those possessions, and your outward and inward senses, such as the eye and the tongue, intelligence and imagination. So the estate that was entrusted to the men was everything that are given to them. And we talked about this last week. Everything that we call ours, everything like our mind, our heart, our spirit, our possessions, everything, when we think about it, we didn't make them, or we don't have full control over them, which implies that we are not the true owner of them. We can observe that there are changes being made on us and on the possessions that we call ours without our free will or against our free will. If we were the true owner of them, we would have total control over it. We could decide what they are going to become. But seeing that we don't have full control over it, and we don't have full insight and full knowledge into them, and if we are not trained, we don't even know their true purpose. All these things remind me that we are not the true owner of these possessions, and they are entrusted to us. As for the most noble lieutenant, it is the noble messenger of God, and the most wise decree is the Wise Qur'an, which describes the trade we are discussing in this verse. So, any comments so far? I would be very happy if you participated and let your thoughts known.
Someone has their hand up.
I cannot, sorry. Out of technical details, I cannot see whose hand is up.
That's okay, I can help. Brother Ali?
Yeah, I think, thank you very much, but I am the co-host like you are. I would pronounce your name as you present yourself, H. Susan. So, H. Okay. Susan, okay?
Okay.
Or if you like me to address you in another way, you are welcome. Just let me know. So I cannot really raise my hand as a co-host, as you cannot either. So I can do this size and this sign instead of raise up. That is a general information. Now, thank you very much. It was a, mashallah, very comprehensive and beautifully summarized presentation of the subject. And you started the subject in a beautiful way. Just I wanted to start the conversation so that the people...
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Now, of course, the text accepts one thing in order to discuss the content of this verse. And also, it is commentary on the verse that we have been studying. So what is that? One has to accept that he or she is created. It means, as you emphasize, the importance of not realizing that the body and whatever within in it, well, tongue, intelligence, imaginations, even heart, spirit, body, or eye, everything does not belong to us, which is very important. Though another person in the, of course, parable, he would deny it. He would say that I exist by myself. But the other one says, look, I cannot claim the ownership over these properties or elements that I have because I cannot handle with them as far as their creation is concerned. I cannot change their creation also. I just have to accept it as they are endowed on me. And that is perfect. But the verse says, it is interesting, it attracted my attention now. The owner of these properties wants to purchase them from you, from the believers, of course. If someone doesn't believe, they wouldn't sell it. They wouldn't give it back to him. So from the believers, their property, their persons, so that there's a very fine tuning in the language of the Quran, so that paradise might be theirs. So the translation says might be, but the Quran says, and I mean, I'm not criticizing the translation, but the Quran says with the language which emphasized the definite result of it. بِأَنَّ لَهُمُ الْجَنَّةِ. Anna means definitely, indeed, the paradise will be theirs. بِأَنَّ لَهُمُ الْجَنَّةِ. It means, it is interesting, as soon as a person realizes that these things do not belong to me, I cannot claim the ownership over them. That is fine. That is what a reasonable person will conclude. So let me put this one down before I forget. Yeah. But if one doesn't accept it, that is his business. Now, when you accept this one, that is not enough. What you have to do now, sell it back to its real, to their, sell them back to their real owner. Now the owner, what is it going to do with it? He has given to you, and the owner is the creator, so he cannot be in need of anything. He just creates it. What does it mean to sell it back? We understand that we have to use it with the consciousness that these things are given to me for a purpose. Now, of course, the following lines or the paragraphs will explain it. But what I would like to emphasize and draw my attention to the point that I am going to make it, this is not a reward that this person who is acknowledging the ownership of these qualities, his body, his soul, his spirit, mind, intelligence, everything. Now, they don't belong to him, but belong to the creator. That is not enough. What this person is expected to do, to sell it back. What does it mean? He is the real owner. What am I going to do with it? So when I start using them for the purpose that the creator has intended to do with it, so that if I apply this person, immediately I will find myself in paradise. What does it mean? Before I die? Yes. The verse doesn't say that after you die, I will put you in paradise in another type of creation. No, it says paradise will be. What is paradise? in the language of the Quran. In general, paradise represents that, as it is described in the Quran, everything will be appropriately arranged according to the expectations of the human side of us, our human side. It means my expectation. What do I expect? Of course, I expect everything to be perfect. I expect everything to be eternal. Not no, there will be no diminishing in the pleasure, in the value of the things I have been given. I must experience them in their fullest capacity. So that is paradise. Everything is perfect according to the capacity I have been given. I am expecting that eternal happiness. If only I experience the eternal happiness, yes. How it is going to be when I start using, not only acknowledging the real owner, but using those properties with the indwelt on me eh, in the way that the Creator intended to be used by me. That is why selling it back. When I sell it back, to whom I sell my intelligence, to whom I sell my imagination, my spirit, my feelings, the one who is the owner of the universe. If I sell them, it means use them, utilize them in the way that the Creator meant to be utilized by meant them to be utilized by me. So what happens? I will find myself that these qualities are giving the news, informing the news that the owner of them are infinite and only he can satisfy them as you expect them to be satisfied. That is paradise while we are in this world. I will say, look, my eyes are given to me, my intelligence is given to me, etc., in order to try to comprehend the quality of their Creator. And when I use them in order to get to know Him, the closer I get to know Him, the better paradise I live in this world. It means I will feel relaxed, I will feel secured, I will feel in peace. Why? These belong to Him who is the absolute being. So He is going to take care of it, not me. I cannot protect my intelligence forever, although I want my intelligence to work perfectly forever. I cannot do that. That is the thing that we have to, the point that we have to be aware that when we use them or when we sell them back to it is their Creator, it doesn't mean that I have nothing left. No, no. I will be still using them, but of course, connecting these things to their origin of existence, who is absolute. As soon as I realize that the origin of their existence is absolute, I can trust the absolute to fulfill my expectations while I am using my intelligence, which means bringing peace because He can secure my intelligence, He can secure my heart, he can secure my body and everything, but not in this form, but my body will be secured as well because I want my body as well. I don't want to be a spiritual being only. I want to practice, physically practice the goodness, the beauty of this world. That is how I am giving the qualities. So when we sell it, it is not the reward that we are going to receive in turn in the hereafter, but it is the automatic result of my attitude that I will be experiencing in this world. It means when I trust my being to the eternal being, my being will be under the control of the eternal being. I will realize this. I will realize this. This realization will make me feel secure now, in peace now, as far as my expectations are concerned. How about the people who understand or believe that their being belongs to the nature? How can they really feel the security? Because nature is transient, nature is just dead matter, nature is blind, nature is itself as it is created, do not have any option to choose. So they don't have, the nature doesn't have the will to choose. They have to follow the order only because they cannot give existence to itself. They are everything in the universe. The nature, it is called as in general, the nature is only a dependent being. It cannot choose anything. So if a person doesn't accept that his being, his existence, belong to an eternal being, the creator of the universe, not of this nature, but the source of existence of this nature, then this person feels that his existence belongs to eternal being. But if someone doesn't accept that he is created, he is given existence by a conscious being, he definitely sees himself, understands himself as the result of an accident happened in nature. Is there any way that this person can really feel security in his existence? Can feel comfort in their existence? It is impossible for a human being. Of course, those people who claim this attitude, this understanding, cannot claim eternal happiness. What can claim, and they are claiming now, enjoy yourself on a daily basis before you are executed forever, thrown into non-existence. That is the difference between acknowledging the Creator and using His property endowed with us, entrusted to us, in acknowledgement of Him for the purpose He created, and a person who doesn't accept the conscious Creator, how he feels in human side. It is horrible. I don't want to be in this position at all. Thank you very much. Thank you, and please go ahead, or others also. I would like to hear everybody's voice.
Thank you.
I was going to say there's also a comment. I'm not sure if you're still having technical difficulties.
Oh, yes, I can see the comment now. So H. Beza wrote, there seems to be a difference between the caprices of the soul, for example, and the desire to utilize the property in the best way possible. So would you like to expand on that, H. Beza? If you would like to do that, please just unmute yourself and join the discussion.
Assalamu alaikum. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you for all the comments so far. Yeah, this was a comment from the beginning of the class when you had introduced the topic to us and summarized what we've been discussing. But I was just thinking about how the caprices of the soul should not. It seems to me that the author is making this distinction between the desire within the human being to want to not waste their property versus this more egoistical attitude in wanting to, I guess, not sell their property, for example. So I don't know. I just wanted to kind of highlight this point because I do think that there is a distinction being made here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That was very helpful. Yeah, I think the both men didn't want the estate to perish and go into nothingness. They both wanted the permanence of the estate. However, one of them, realizing his reality, accepted the king's offer, and the other one, not realizing his reality, chose to keep to his own devices. Thank you for your contribution. Is there anyone who would like to add anything so far? Khalid Hassan, please go ahead. I see your hand.
So I wanted to bring up that it's interesting that this seems to be an illusion that there is ownership of this estate by the two craftsmen. But that's also where it becomes hard to make the trade, I think, because I feel much more comfortable when this is in my hands, as long as I believe that I'm the owner of it. But the reality is different from what appears to be. How do you come to clarity that this is an illusion, that I own it? Because I don't actually own it, but it feels very, very much like I do.
Thank you for your question. What comes to my mind, the first thing that comes to my mind is the noble messenger and the wise decree. They play a pivotal part in realizing that we are not the true owners of our possessions, because yes, like you say, it very much feels like we are the true owners of these things. We can use them to some extent and we can make choices on how to utilize them. However, only at times of impotence and a heightened level of realization, I think, we realize that we actually don't have full control over these things. But our realization is complemented by the decree that is sent to us, which explains to us our reality in detail, and by the messenger who brings that message and explains it further. That's what I think about this question. I wonder, what does everyone think about it? How do we come to realize that we don't own these possessions? Is there anyone who would like to talk? Yeah, awesome. Go ahead, please.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you. Yeah, as you said, so as you highlighted about the pivotal point about the messenger, so even our consciousness or awareness acts like a messenger as well. So if you think about it, like how to get out of this reality that you think is that I own these qualities. So go over your life journey and look at it. Look at the people around you, look at the things that are changing constantly. You run into different people of all sorts of ages, and you see, yeah, the people before you, the generations before you are no longer here. So that is also signs and awakening by your consciousness that shows, hey, you know, no matter, you may be the most intelligent person, the most powerful person, but when you go pass by a graveyard, you see what happens to your reality. So definitely all the signs that I encounter in the universe are pointing to that reality, that get out of this, you know, dilemma of your thinking that you are the owner of all these qualities. So do they just happen to be there by themselves, or, you know, it makes you more aware and conscious to wonder by looking at, you know, your being and what you see around yourself. And that is the side of the human being, as you said, the caprices, which needs to be awakened and trained, because there is a constant battle, I would say, a struggle going between your consciousness and that caprice of the human being. And caprice kind of leads you to, you know, that ownership, and then your consciousness corrects it and says, hey, you know, come back, you are given these qualities. Okay, and my friend will add some things here.
Yeah, so just I think what Brother Ali also highlighted earlier about the creation of everything, just realizing even my createdness is a tough challenge, at least for me as well. But I think that if we take not even a deeper look, but just an observation of how change is happening within oneself, or even creation around us, or even when we look at our baby pictures or anything, it's really, I cannot really explain the phenomenon of this change, this continuous change that I observe all around me. I just really cannot attribute that change to matter, the universe, or even myself. I have no control over my aging as well. So I think this really puts us in an alert mode. And just like Austin pointed out about, you know, the consciousness gets alerted that, whoa, I have no control over anything, and yet things are being changed. Like, really, what is the source of existence of this change? And so this then helps me to sort of clear out all these caprices and ego, just like it was commented in terms of how do I clear myself out of this. It's just, I think, thorough check-in within oneself. Otherwise, if I let it go like that, then I'm so full of ego and caprices that, yeah, you know, I'm doing this, it's my doing, or even I may not even pay attention. Yeah, you know, suddenly I you know, a decade just went by, but it's inevitable, this not questioning, an agent of change. So I think that puts my consciousness in an alert mode, and that should help alleviate the ego, which wants to appropriate things to oneself. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for your contribution. Yeah, I agree with both of you. While living in this universe, we are definitely presented with so many reminders. Before we meet with the messenger and before we are introduced to the decree, we are definitely we are introduced to so many reminders that almost make up a question in ourselves, and a question that is so strongly compelling that we cannot help but look for the answer of it. And is there anyone who would like to add anything, or should we continue? We have a message. Oh, awesome says, the messenger offers the good news of the trade. Yeah, thank you. Yes, the messenger bears happy news coming from the infinite mercy of the Creator. His choice to reach out and help. The messenger is the symbol of his mercy. Not only the symbol, but his mercy. And Khalid Hassan says, it seems that dunya breaks us and revelation wakes us. Thank you, that is interesting. If you would like to explain that, please go ahead. But if not...
Yeah, sure. It
okay.
seems that the nature of the illusion is something that forces you, maybe out of anxiety or other forms of discomfort, to look for the security. Like you're actually, maybe because of the way things are set up by the illusion, you're actually looking forward to this trade. And for some people, it's a relief when the noble messenger comes with the offer. Whereas some people, that's the interesting wall for me, is, well, at what point does the trade become difficult for you to accept? And is that because of the caprices? Is that because of arrogance? Or is it because of a sense of insecurity? Like, I just don't know, maybe it's too good to be true. Because it seems that the trade, you know, that revelation, so to speak, which is there to wake us from the illusion, to let us know that, hey, this is an offer that you can take. And yet some people don't seem to take it, despite the illusion being so, like I said, anxiety inducing, that you would by nature actually be looking forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you for your contribution. And Asim, go ahead, please.
Just to add on, I think, yeah, I agree with the whole part of how revelation becomes like a relief for all of us. Otherwise, just living here becomes so burdensome in terms of, oh my God, like I don't have control over anything. So where do I go? Like, what do who do I ask for help, or what should I, seek out for to satisfy my human expectations, to satisfy, or just because we identify our anxieties. There's no denying in that. So who do I go to? So really clearly, like, it's when we're able to do the whole La ilaha process in terms of nothing of this universe has the ability to provide me with this eternal security that I need in my existence, then the only option is there must be an absolute source of eternal happiness, which is the one that's making me realize this, which is the one that's making me go through this existential journey. And that's the only one that I can seek. Otherwise, just imagine, without any of this news, the burden is just going to really pain me. Like the back will just be in pain, and there will be no salvation. So I think it's also a matter of even we may carry on this burden. Yeah, I'm the one that's doing this, but deep down, this existential burden is very heavy. I cannot really hold on to anything. I cannot sustain my own existence. So definitely we do need revelation or speech of my Creator in verbal form to help me out. Otherwise, I'm at a loss. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. And like you said earlier, you talked about conscience. And conscience, from what I understand, is one of the tools that is given to us, that we can differentiate things with that, or conscience compels us to be honest to ourselves. And if we silence it so much, to the degree of living in complete delusion, we cannot benefit from it. obviously, but I think it is also a very merciful bounty that something, a tool like conscience, was implanted in us. And Tolu, go ahead, please. We cannot hear you. I see your hand up, but we cannot hear you. So if you'd like to say, okay.
Hello?
Hi,
Can you hear
okay.
me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Um, yeah, I just wanted to comment first of all on what other people were saying. So I agree about, we look around and we see like nothing, like everything kind of like has an end. Like there's no one alive who people die, we age and we die. Practically for myself, what that does for me is that it gives me more of like an impetus to do more. There's this like saying, or maybe it's more of the like a capitalist kind of mindset, but it's a kind of the idea of, okay, well, if you have a limited amount of time in this life, you should make the most of your time and you should be productive and you should try and get a lot done. And so from a practical point of view, when I see people, aging and dying and people having like short lifespans, it doesn't necessarily point me into a direction of, oh, like look for your creator. What it points me to instead is, oh, I got to do more with this time that I have. How can I be as productive as possible with this X amount of time that I'm given? And so, yeah, I just wanted to point out that, that like the limitation of time doesn't necessarily always point towards looking for something bigger. It can also point into a more like anxious productivity type of mindset from a practical point of view. And so I just wanted to share that.
Thank you for that. And what your comment made me think about is perhaps we see the transience of our life, our worldly life, that we are certain that we are going to come to the end of our days in this world. But if we can also see that whatever we do in terms of productivity or the projects that we take, they are kind of from the same nature too. They are also transient. And I can spend years of my life doing so many projects after projects after projects. But if I don't have a good reason to do so, or if I don't know the reason why I'm doing them, or if I don't know the true nature of them and how can they be of any use, then it would be some sort of a like something that would keep me busy. However, I don't know if is there anyone who'd like to add on to this topic? That would be really helpful. Oh, there is a comment from Ali Mermer. In the language of the Quran, claiming that I am the owner of my property, abtar, bound to come to a dead end. On the other hand, if one accepts that he is the product of the creator of the universe, he will open up in his existence to the capacity of the creator, who must be absolute, which means Kevthar, limitless continuation of existence, like a river running constantly. So claiming that I am the owner of my property, that is bound to come to a dead end. On the other hand, if one accepts that he is the product of the creator of the universe, he will open up in his existence to the capacity of the creator, who must be absolute, which means Kevthar, limitless continuation of existence. Thank you, Brother Ali. And there's another comment. Oh, okay. Thank you too. I think, sorry. Khalid Hassan says, is it simpler to accept the creator or to accept that we are creation? We are a creation. That's a great question, and I would like to direct this question to everyone in the group. I think from Feriha's and Asim's comments, I would think that, and Farah's comment that she just wrote down, I would think that we begin with realizing that we are created in the sense that we are not the source of anything that we need or that we realize. And within that is necessary existence of the creator. Thank you, Farah. So should we go on reading, or is there anyone who would like to have, yes, Ali, Brother Ali, go ahead, please.
And, I'll try to be very short now. I think it is so simple, like changing the direction. If someone turns to the direction and goes into a dead end road or street, then it goes there and dies and becomes lost in his view, in his understanding. Or some Eastern religions say it joins into the recycling within the universe again and again and again. But as long as the consciousness is concerned,
We lost your voice, Brother Ali. You muted yourself.
thank you for reminding me. Yeah, I did, without realizing. So as a compost, recycling within the universe, but not having your spirit, your consciousness with you means nothing. It means it's nothing to do with you anymore, because your body recycles, not your human side recycles. Human side does not belong to this universe in its existence, in it is the way it exists has nothing to do with the particles of this universe. My consciousness, my spirit, my feelings, my reasoning, and whatever I imagine, my imagination, it cannot be or is not made of the particles of this universe. My feelings cannot be the particles of this universe. No one can claim that. So the recycling is subject to the body as a compost, nothing to do with you, because there is no consciousness in the particles of the body. So change your direction, saying that, look, I cannot stop myself. Changing continuously, I cannot really keep my existence as constant as I would like it to be. So turn back and say that I must be product of a conscious being who arranged all this universe and put me as a guest in the form of a human being with the ability to communicate with him. He has given me the ability to communicate. I didn't produce it. I didn't create it. So when you change the direction, it starts now just the opposite direction, unraveling everything. You have a creator, okay. This creator, as Farah said, requires that you become aware of a conscious creator. So all the qualities that are given to me I become aware that they are deliberately, consciously, purposefully put in my existence. And I am given the quality of consciousness to become aware of these qualities and utilize them as they should be utilized. So I can understand. And also this creator not only lives me in this world with his act, he must also guide me with the language that I understand, because he created me with the capacity to understand the speech. So it means he speaks and I can understand his speech. That's why I have to look, I have to search for his speech so that I will understand the answers to my inquiries, my questions. For example, yes, I know that I am created by a conscious being. But what am I supposed to do here? How can I really communicate with my owner? I don't know. There is no sign in the universe that I can communicate with my owner. Yes, I know there's a wonderful work that the owner is really exhibiting here in this world, but I am cut off with it. But I want to be with him. I want to communicate with him. So he must tell me how to do it. That is why the one who is given the message to be transferred to human beings, there must be somebody who will do this mission, and he will transfer the speech of the creator in a created world. And I, as a created being, can understand this and utilize it in order to get in touch with my creator consciously and knowingly, be aware of it. Oh, this consciousness is wonderful. It explains everything. Everything. If one pays attention to the reality that he is a conscious being, everything comes up. So we can understand how to utilize our qualities, how we should really use them in alliance with the qualities of the Creator, so that I will always be aware of his qualities manifesting in me through the examples, through the, if you like, I wouldn't say the samples, but the signs of his quality within myself. Then I can utilize all my qualities in order to get to know him better, get closer to his uh, presence in my life as much as possible. So I will go and carry on educating myself in these lines. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So if there's no other comments, or if there's no other comments, we can go on. We were finding out about the um, meanings behind the symbolic components of the parable, and going on from there, the surging field of battle is the tempestuous surface of the world, which ceaselessly changes, dissolves, and reforms, and causes every man to think. Since everything will leave our hands, will perish and be lost, is there no way in which we can transform it into something eternal and preserve it? The surging field of battle is the tempestuous surface of the world, which we all experience as an ever-changing, transient war zone, which ceaselessly changes, dissolves, and reforms, and causes every man to think. Since everything will leave our hands, will perish and be lost, is there no way in which we can transform it into something eternal and preserve it? This question This question is one of the most prominent questions that we as human beings have after realizing that everything is transient and everything in this universe is transient, and they don't really help us with our deepest needs, and including the things that we do ourselves to save us from perishing. They are also ineffective if we are completely unaware of our reality as created beings. And so this question comes up: is there any way in which we can transform this life with everything in it into something eternal and preserve it? While engaged in these thoughts, he suddenly hears the heavenly voice of the Qur'an saying, "Indeed there is a beautiful and easy way which contains 5 prophets within itself." Just like we talked earlier, there are so many reminders in the universe compelling us to find the solution for our biggest questions and biggest problems, which are death, perishing of everything, not knowing our true nature or the true purpose of our existence, and who are we subject to in this journey of life. And while engaged in these thoughts, in the sense that we cannot help but look for the answers to these questions, if not feel the heaviness of these questions very closely, he suddenly hears the heavenly voice of the Quran saying, "Indeed there is a beautiful and easy way which contains 5 prophets within itself." So the Prophet والسلام, and the decree, that is the Quran, does bear happy news indeed. What is that way? To sell the trust received back to its true owner. Such a sale yields profit 5-fold. Now, talking about selling everything seemingly in our possession to its true owner seems to have five-fold profits. And now we are about to read about them. The first profit: transient property becomes everlasting. For this waning life, when given to the eternal and self-subsistent Lord of Glory and spent for his sake, will be transmuted into eternity. It will yield eternal fruits. The moments of one's life will apparently vanish and rot like kernels and seeds. But then the flowers of blessedness and auspiciousness will open and bloom in the realm of eternity, and each will also present a luminous and reassuring aspect in the intermediate realm. In the first prophet, we are talking about transient property, like our mind, our imagination, the talents that were entrusted to us, perhaps the aspirations and dreams that were entrusted to us. All that property becomes everlasting. And it goes on to explain that for this waning life, when given to the eternal and self-subsistent Lord of Glory and spent for his sake, will be transmuted into eternity. The one who entrusts us this property is eternal and self-subsistent. And from this part, I understand that anything that is spent for his sake and given to him will be also transmuted into eternity. It will yield eternal fruits. The moments of one's life will apparently vanish and rot like kernels and seeds. But then the flowers of blessedness and auspiciousness will open and bloom in the realm of eternity, and each will also present a luminous and reassuring aspect in the intermediate realm. So, is there anyone who would like to make a comment on this transient property becoming everlasting part? To me, this is one of the biggest pains in my life. Mostly about the things like intelligence or talent or the things that I mentioned, like aspirations and dreams in an ever-changing world. They are taken out of my hands against my free will. However, and also I cannot help but feel this question very closely. Since everything is going to leave, isn't there any way that I could transform it into something eternal and preserve it? Because the beauty of those things that reflect the beauty of their creator are very lovable to me. I get attached to them, and I don't want them to perish and go into nothingness. So I cannot help but look for a way to change them that they would also be eternal. And selling this trust to its true owner brings one of the profits that this transient property becomes everlasting. The second profit, the high price of paradise is given in exchange. Like Brother Ali talked about this earlier, paradise is not a place that we are only going to go after our life in this world is over, but it is almost like a state of being that everything that is given to us are functioning according to their true purpose, and therefore they kind of fulfill their potential and feel that happiness and joy out of fulfilling their potential, also being secure in their existence. The transient and ever-changing nature of the universe we are living in sometimes causes a great deal of anxiety and worries and fears. And from what I understand from this part is if we can make the choice to give everything to its true owner, to realize that we are created beings and we are subject to an absolute creator, and if we can use everything and see everything in his name within his permission, then we are, whatever happens, we are existentially secure, and that is a paradise-like state, if not paradise. Any comments so far? I am moving on to the third prophet. The value of each. Oh, okay. Brother Ali, go ahead, please.
I found this example of the kernel or seed example is an excellent example. Actually, this deliberately create the world. In this world, these kernels and seeds are deliberately created in the way that they are created. And the Quran also says, Quran also gives the reference to growing the plants, and human beings also will grow like plants into the eternal life in this world, in feelings, in after the creation, in another type of creation, really physical existence as well. And the kernel looks like a matter, but there is something in it which makes it the seed, the kernel, or the kernel. Makes it a seed. Seed means something, there is something in it which is not of the nature of matter, but some codes registered in the form of knowledge or the plan, not the paper of the plan, blueprint of the future creation, but not to, for example, if you look at a plan, blueprint drawn by an architect, what you see the paper, you see some drawings, lines there, and calculations there. But in fact, there is knowledge reflecting in it. Can you see the knowledge? You see the signs of knowledge there, knowledge of the architect. But it is not in the form of matter, exactly like human beings. Our physical body is the paper and the lines on the blueprint, but our spirit is the quality of being a seed in a material, I don't know, a substance, which is called seed, or which is called the kernel. But when the kernel, it is of course, it's an analogy, acknowledges that it is not itself will grow the tree or the plant out of the knowledge there. For example, when the blueprint acknowledges that it is not the source of existence of the building which will be made or built out of according to this plan. What they do is the blueprint or the seeds leave themselves to the conscious being who has ingrained in it his knowledge, what he is going to create, he is going to make. So when the seed acknowledges that if the seed was a conscious being, that he is not going to do it, it is not going to do it, but the maker of the kernel is going to grow a tree out of this kernel. So the text says, actually, it's beautiful, the moments of one's life will apparently vanish as the kernel rots itself, as it starts growing into a new tree. The vanish and the rot like kernels and seeds. Of course, what comes out? Completely a new way of life, understanding of life within this world. After we die, another type of creation. It is completely different from the kernel, but at the same time preserves the knowledge. It means the human spirit in it and turns into a new body, completely different from the kernel itself. A new body. But before we die, we become aware that we have been given the knowledge like the kernel is given, will grow into a new tree. Means while I am here, I am conscious that if I utilize my human side, my spirit, my intelligence in the right way, without claiming that I will grow them, I will protect them. I will carry on their existence. I cannot. It is obvious. No one said that I can guarantee my existence. No one, whether they believe or not, regardless of any claim. No one can do that. So what happens? As soon as I realize that I cannot grow it, leave it myself to the hands of the Creator. It means leave it myself to the order, the will of my Creator. It will grow into a tree, and it is much, much beyond the capacity of the kernel itself. It has thousands of different kinds, thousands of new kernels, thousands of branches, completely different from what the kernel is in itself. So exactly when we realize and submit ourselves, surrender ourselves to the hands of our Creator, our human side, consciousness, will grow into a tree as compared to the kernel. It is incomparable, actually. It is impossible to compare. So that is the way we experience while we are living in this world, the eternal happiness in our life. That is what a new life is going to be, actually, after submitting ourselves to our Creator. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was very helpful, applying the kernel and seed example to pretty much everything, including ourselves as human beings. Is there any other comments? If not, we can move on to the third prophet. The third prophet, the value of each limb and each sense is increased 1,000-fold. The intelligence is, for example, like a tool. If you do not sell it to God Almighty, but rather employ it for the sake of the soul, it will become an ill-omened, noxious, and debilitating tool that will burden your weak person with all the sad sorrows of the past and the terrifying fears of the future. It will descend to the rank of an inauspicious and destructive tool. It is for this reason that a sinful man will frequently resort to drunkenness or frivolous pleasure in order to escape the vexations and injuries of his intelligence. But if you sell your intelligence to its true owner and employ it on his behalf, then it will become like the key to a talisman, unlocking the infinite treasures of compassion and the vaults of wisdom that creation contains. It will thus rise to being a dominical guide, preparing its owner for eternal bliss. The third prophet is actually very much about what Brother Ali just explained. The value of each limb and each sense is increased 1,000-fold. The intelligence is, for example, like a tool. Now we are moving on to the part that sheds light on how we can sell the property to its true owner. The intelligence is, for example, like a tool. If you don't sell it to God Almighty, but rather employ it for the sake of the soul, it will become an ill-omened, noxious, and debilitating tool that will burden your weak person with all the sad sorrows of the past and the terrifying fears of the future. It will descend to the rank of an inauspicious and destructive tool. It is for this reason that a simple man will frequently resort to drunkenness or frivolous pleasure in order to escape the vexations and injuries of his intelligence. Intelligence is a tool that enables us to, or helps us realize things, and helps us be aware of things. So if we realize that we are created beings in a universe in which nothing can fulfill our biggest needs, or nothing can protect us from what we find dangerous, then the vexations and injuries of the mind on a person would be really debilitating. But sorry, there's a comment in the chat box. Khalid Hassan says, are consciousness and intelligence synonymous? No, they are not synonymous. I think they are not synonymous. So if I used it in a way that kind of interjected the two of them, sorry about that, but I was mainly talking about realizing. Can anybody help us with whether consciousness or intelligence are synonymous? Or perhaps if we go over this paragraph once again, we can find the due particular purpose of intelligence as it's explained here. So in this paragraph, intelligence seems to be a tool that would introduce to us all the sad sorrows of the past and the terrifying fears of the future. It will descend to the rank of an inauspicious and destructive tool. So, but if you sell your intelligence to its true owner and employ it on his behalf, then it will become like a key to a talisman, unlocking the infinite treasures of compassion and the vaults of wisdom that creation contains. It will thus rise to being a dominical guide, preparing its owner for eternal bliss. So intelligence seems to me like a tool to see things internally, see and recognize things. If we don't realize that, if we cannot form our connection to our Creator, the things that we see and observe and recognize seem to be, can very easily seem to be dangers to us. But if we can manage to sell the intelligence to its true owner and realize that we are existentially secure as long as we recognize our Creator and respect the bond that we have and employ the intelligence on his behalf, then it becomes like a key to a talisman, unlocking the infinite treasures of compassion. So there are two comments in the chat box. So it's more like a limb of consciousness, and Asim says, all physical parts, senses and feelings can be taken as tools. Yeah, thank you. I don't know if intelligence is like a limb of consciousness, but that makes sense to me. If there is anyone who would like to add on to that, please go ahead. And by the way, we are out of our time, and Asim, yes, go ahead, please, Asim.
Just like you said, Hane, you know, we cannot really compartmentalize any of it. It's just so all intertwined, but obviously everything is given to us. So for example, intelligence is really a tool, so we reason about it. We can either reason it in any way we want, you know, how we say different perspective, different worldview, but we need to utilize all of them. And we have other tools as well, like power of sight, sense of smell and taste. But like you were saying that, yeah, we realize all of it. So our consciousness is at play while we're utilizing it because we also have free will. So there's really no way to compartmentalize any of it, but it's just a matter of knowing that it's endowed to me, and I'm using my free will and I'm using it. So it's up to me either to use it, to use my free will in how it's supposed to be used, which should be in alignment with my human nature, as in they're just not haphazard tools that are given. They're given, so there must be a purpose to it. And so I need to utilize my free will in order to direct whatever is it that I'm doing in the right direction. So that will be it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was really helpful. And Brother Ali, go ahead, please.
Intelligence is under the control of human free will. Whereas, I mean, you can direct your your intelligence to find out the source of your existence within nature, going back to 14 billion years ago, the creation, or going forward another 14 billion years or more, even trillion years, what will happen to the end of the universe. You can direct it and you can manipulate with it. It is a tool. Whereas, as far as I understand, I'm not 100% sure about it, but I'm using the concepts. The concept of consciousness means to me, excuse me, concept of consciousness means to me, it doesn't, it cannot be changed the direction this way or another way. It is always there. It is awareness of its own existence. It is awareness of the existence of consciousness. It is awareness of what my free will is doing, why I am going this way. Everybody knows it. As the Quran says, we have assigned a qareen, a very close one, to every being, which observes and is aware of what this human being is doing. It means within ourselves, this is our spirit, it is our soul, it is aware of what I am doing in reality. But I am free to pay attention to this awareness of consciousness or ignore it. But I cannot stop. I cannot change the direction of consciousness. If you really concentrate on yourself, as Fariha said earlier, of course we cannot compartmentalize our human side, but consciousness is something standing out independently. We cannot get rid of it. We cannot shut it up, but I can shut up my intelligence and misuse it by changing its direction to another way that my soul, but the soul is mere ego, caprice here. Soul means nefs, ego, caprice. My caprices to be satisfied, but intelligence can be controlled, whereas consciousness cannot be controlled. Consciousness lets me know that, become aware that what I am doing is running away from my reality. That is the witness, as the Quran says. That is the witness within human beings, a witness in our existence. I would say the self-awareness of human spirit is called consciousness. But this is my definition, not the dictionary definition. No one knows what consciousness is in physical terms anyways. So even they don't know intelligence in physical terms, but they try to misinterpret it by using it in misplacing its position, saying that the brain produces it. Yeah, but the brain cannot exist and cannot do anything out of my free will, which is not within brain. It is all sort of, meaningless arguments, but human beings are free to choose any argument they want. Thank you.
Thank you. And we are out of time, but there is one more comment by Khalid. So perhaps after that we can close it off. So Khalid, please go ahead.
Sorry, I just realized how many times I've heard my name. The reason I was asking to sort of try to distinguish where one ends and where one begins is that, for example, if you have an illness in the eye, it doesn't necessarily mean you have an illness in other places. And so if there's an illness in your intelligence, well, is the remedy for that the same as an illness in your consciousness? And so I'm trying to sort of, because maybe where you're sick in one place doesn't necessarily mean you're sick in another place, but then how much does a sickness in one place affect the other? Sorry, it's very abstract. I hope that made sense.
Well, thank you, but I have to ask you what you mean exactly by sickness. Do you mean a sickness like a sickness of the sort that is out of our hands, that was just given to us, or the sickness that is caused by our misuse and that prevents us from fulfilling our real duties? So
the latter, the kind where you have self-inflicted the illness.
Thank you. That's a great question, but it is beyond me. So if anybody would like to answer that, that would be really great. And I don't see any hands. Oh, awesome. Go ahead, please, or Feriha.
No, if it's self-inflicted, that's, I think, as Brotherly explained, the free will, your intelligence works under the free will, and the consciousness of the human being is always there to give the signal to make the person aware, but the free will has the direction. If you can think of it like it's the one that decides, and you may choose out of the options that anybody has. The free will is the one that says, hey, okay, let's say I'm hurting my foot and self-inflicting, but that's my own choice. So the consciousness says, hey, that's something wrong, this because there's a pain. That's also telling you, giving you the signal, and you process that. But that's the duty of the consciousness, but the free will actually comes into play, which is another tool that is given to us to how to direct ourselves, our being, and how to realize this consciousness also comes into play, and then free will kind of either can choose to take it or not choose to take it.
So yeah, bottom line, the consciousness is aware of how the free will is being utilized. Am I directing all my senses and feelings on which direction? So I think one is aware, so it's just a matter of employing, like you saying, just adding on to what I understand from what Asim said.
Thank you. So if there are no other thoughts, we can make the prayer and close it. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.